Welcome to Architect of Tomorrow. We don't just write code here, we design the systems that run the world.
All right, let's talk about the most expensive mistakes you can make in your cloud architecture. And look, we're not talking about minor misconfigurations here. These are the big, foundational errors that can just quietly drain your budget and introduce some massive operational risk. So, let's dive right in. So what's with this number? $200,000. Well, that's the potential cost of a single architectural decision gone wrong. I've seen this happen firsthand, where a bunch of seemingly small shortcuts just compound and compound until, boom, it's a six-figure problem. This isn't some made-up number, it's the real-world financial hit you can take from not getting the fundamentals right in the cloud. And that's really the key thing to get here. The mistakes we're about to cover, they're not unique. They are the same traps people fall into again and again across thousands of deployments on AWS, on Azure, and on GCP. They start out small, but they escalate really fast into some serious technical debt that hurts both your ability to innovate and, you guessed it, your bottom line.
Okay, so here's our roadmap. We're going to start at the very foundation, your account strategy. Then we'll hit security, cost management, getting too complex too soon, resilience, and finally, how your own teams can become a bottleneck.
First up, the flawed account strategy. You know, it is so tempting, especially when you're starting a new project, to just throw everything into one single cloud account. It feels fast, it feels simple, but trust me, that initial convenience is a trap that sets you up for some major pain later on. Let me put a real number on this for you. I had one enterprise client. They spent $65,000 in pure engineering time just to untangle the mess they made with their single account. But the real cost? That came when a change in their non-production environment accidentally took down their entire production system for 8 hours. The hit to the business was about $125,000. All in, that's almost $200,000 for a problem that was totally preventable.
So on the left, you see the chaos of that single account. There's no isolation, so a mistake in dev can bring down everything. Audits are a complete nightmare. And you always hear that famous last line, we'll split it up later, which, let's be honest, never happens until there's a crisis. The fix, over on the right, is a structured multi-account strategy using tools like AWS organizations. You treat production as sacred. It's totally isolated with clear boundaries, clear access. It's the only way to go.
And that leads us right into our second mistake, porous security and access control. You know, in the rush to get stuff working, security is often the first thing to go out the window. A developer needs access? Sure, give them a broad role. A service needs to connect to another? Just open up all the traffic. This focus on just make it work convenience creates these little ticking time bombs all over your architecture. And here are the usual suspects. A security group open to the whole internet? That's basically leaving your front door wide open. Giving everyone admin rights completely violates the principle of least privilege. And this last one is critical. Without good logging, when you do get breached, you have absolutely no way to figure out what happened. Each one of these is a huge vulnerability. Put them together, and you're just waiting for disaster. Now get this. Here's a data point that should really drive this home. A report from Savient found that over a third, 35% of privileged users had permissions so broad they could single-handedly take down their company's entire environment. That's not about external hackers. That's about mitigating the risk of internal mistakes and way too powerful accounts. Okay, mistake number 3 is reactive cost management. So many companies wait until they get that shocking, heart-stoppingly high cloud bill before they even start thinking about financial governance. But by then, the wasteful habits, they're already baked into the culture. This quote from a really sharp CTO I know just hits the nail on the head. The whole point of FinOps isn't just to be cheap. It's about making deliberate, data-driven decisions so that every single dollar you spend in the cloud is actually delivering business value. It's all about being efficient and intentional. And here's what happens when you're not intentional. This is a real cloud bill from a client. Of their $85,000 monthly spend, a full $40,000, that's almost 50%, was just preventable waste. We're talking idle resources left running 24/7, massively over-provisioned databases. Think an 8-core machine running at just 8% utilization all day long. This isn't some rare case. This is what happens when cost is an afterthought. This takes us to our fourth big mistake, getting way too complex way too early. You know how it is. Engineers love to build for massive scale. We get excited about cool, complex tools like Kubernetes or breaking everything down into microservices. But picking those patterns before you actually have the traffic to justify them is just a recipe for wasting time and money. I mean, this might sound absurd, but it happens. I've seen teams spend months building out a super complex Kubernetes platform for a workload that could have easily run on a single $50 a month EC2 instance. The real cost isn't just the infrastructure, it's the huge amount of engineering effort spent maintaining a complex system for what is, fundamentally, a simple problem.
So how do you avoid this trap? Well, you use a data-driven framework like the one you see here. You match your architectural choices to your actual traffic, not some hypothetical future scale. If you have fewer than 100 requests a day, a single virtual machine or a Lambda function is all you need. You shouldn't even be thinking about Kubernetes until you're way past 10,000 daily requests. This gives you a clear, rational way to scale your complexity as you grow.
Okay, here's a really simple rule of thumb for you to take away. As an architect, your job is to design for your current scale plus a reasonable buffer for growth, let's say 50%. Do not build for a 10 times larger imaginary future. You can always evolve the architecture when the traffic actually shows up. Mistake number 5 is a huge one, neglecting resilience in high availability. So many teams see a cloud provider's 99.9% uptime SLA for a virtual machine and just assume their application is automatically protected. And let me tell you, that is a dangerous misunderstanding of how cloud infrastructure really works. When you deploy your entire application in a single availability zone, or AZ, you're creating a massive single point of failure. If that one data center has a power issue or a network problem, your whole application goes down with it. That VM SLA doesn't matter. The proper way to do this is with a multi-AZ architecture. By spreading your app across multiple isolated data centers in a region, you build in redundancy and the ability to automatically fail over. That's how you get true high availability. And finally, our 6th mistake. This one shifts from the technology to the people and the process, creating operational team bottlenecks. A really common model is to have a centralized platform team that handles all the infrastructure requests. In theory, it enforces standards, but in reality, it often just kills velocity and becomes a huge point of friction for everyone. This before and after really says it all. In the old model, a product team files a ticket for a new database, and then they wait for 2 or 3 weeks. The platform team is just a bottleneck. The modern, much more effective model transforms that team into an enablement team. Instead of doing tickets, they build secure self-service tools like a Terraform module. Now the product team can get their own database in 10 minutes. The platform team's job changes from doing the work to empowering everyone else to do it safely and quickly.
So how do you put all this together? What's the game plan? It really comes down to this framework. You start with a solid, multi-account foundation. You enforce infrastructure as code to prevent manual errors. You manage your costs intentionally from day one. You build for resilience across multiple AZs. And finally, you structure your teams to empower and enable, not to block. If you follow this, you are setting yourself up for long-term success.
We'll end on this thought. The patterns we've talked about today aren't just abstract theories. They are hard-won lessons from thousands of real-world projects. Taking the time to really understand and avoid these 6 mistakes is one of the highest value investments you can make in the health, the security, and the financial future of your cloud architecture. So what does your architecture look like when you see it through this lens?